Welcome back to Kappa, the world of turtles. Before we begin, a footnote. New research has found that we are peering at a kappa that is not 6.4 million years old, but 10. A fact that explains the extent of the change we have observed so far. This video, we will be taking a break from Raphael's journey to explore the vast continent on which he lives. Kappa is a soaking wet, weather-beaten world made up of millions of tiny islands. Most land that dares poke its head above the waterline is worn down flat by perpetual storms, fueled by the rapid evaporation of equatorial waters warmer than the average hot tub. What would otherwise be open plains atop the continental crust is swallowed by the sea and covered in millions of square kilometers of seagrass meadow, constantly shredded by wind and wave before growing back in a matter of days. Here, however, is the exception that proves the rule. The continent of Vosum. It is easily the largest landmass on Kappa, roughly the size of Australia. To its south is the Kaysak Ocean. As the crust that rests underneath it moves north, it slides under the continental Vosum plate, sinking towards the mantle as it drives its continental sibling upwards. The depth of the sea floor generally ranges between 700 and 1500 meters. However, in its furthest depths, an abyssal tectonic trench stretches down for over 6 kilometers. The open ocean is the birthplace of the southerly storms that batter the continent. Unimpeded by land for thousands of miles, 320 km/h winds stir up monster waves. The tallest of these ephemeral obsidian mountains was recorded at 54 meters from tip to trough. As we move north, colossal columns of carved black basalt loom out of the mist. This is the Scathlin Archipelago. They are completely uninhabited by all but the hardiest of algae that somehow find homes in crags and crevices shielded from the wind. As the storms finally meet the continental shelf, the force of thousands of miles of oceanic fury is redirected upwards. The biggest waves that slam against these isles tower 100 meters tall, thundering walls of water that would swallow Big Ben. We head further northward, over the Gulf of Knives, until we reach the coast. These are the Kalkani Mountains. With their peaks obscured by great clouds, new research has found that their dark spires reach almost 3,000 meters. Their height is a constant battle between the erosion wrought by howling winds and the mighty tectonic forces that push them into the sky. The storms scour the windward slopes to an almost marble smoothness, and etch out bizarre stone structures resembling abstract works of art. So powerful are the forces of wind and rain that many of these peaks will not last a century before they crumble into the dark and jagged valleys below. The Kalkani Mountains are highly volcanic. As the oceanic crust is pushed underneath the continent, it sinks into the mantle, liquefying in the extreme heat. This fresh magma is driven towards the surface, pushing up sky-scraping volcanoes that belch out toxic gases, alongside mineral-laden ash to be snatched up by the winds. As we pass northwest, we begin to leave the mountains behind. The winds weaken, the thunder and lightning lessens, until eventually, as craggy black rock gives way to verdant green highlands, all that can be heard is a distant, angry rumble, like a monster lamenting the prey that just managed to escape from its lair. Looking back to the southeast, we see that the combined 900-kilometer depth of the Kalkani Mountains and the Skathlin Archipelago have broken the back of the southern storms. They act as dark, jagged shields that protect the continental interior from being smashed and scoured bare. The storms are so great, however, that much of their moisture still soars over their high peaks, and their downwind sides still experience torrential rains. The mountains create only a partial rain shadow effect, with the leeward side being only somewhat drier than the windward side. Not uncommonly, a particularly massive storm will sweep over the mountains almost intact, devastating the interior. For now though, there is relative peace. Here, we sit amongst vast fields of moss-covered boulders and lava tubes. All around us, the sources of continent-shaping rivers are beginning to pick up speed after trickling down from the peaks we left behind. Being so close to their volcanic source, they are still highly acidic and laden with toxic concentrations of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen halides. Most life struggles to find a foothold here. As we move further into the continental interior, streams and tributaries converge into mighty rivers. Torrential rain dilutes most of their toxic content, while much of the rest gradually escapes into the atmosphere, is neutralized through chemical reactions with minerals in the riverbed, or is metabolized by bacteria and fungi into less harmful substances. They supply the Merbos River Basin, an enormous network of rivers, lakes, floodplains and wetlands. It is the most diverse ecosystem on the entire planet. Drastically weakened by the Kalkani Mountains, but still laden with moisture, southerly storm systems ensure it is almost always raining. Their winds carry volcanic ash from the south, distributing it over thousands of miles to fertilize the basin. Volcanic ash mingles with decaying plant matter to create a rich, black soil. Spectacularly diverse microfauna crawls through this complex substrate, accelerating biological processes that make essential nutrients abundant and available to the rest of life in the Merbos. It is the indispensable foundation upon which this entire ecosystem is built. We continue our journey northwest. After traveling over 2,000 miles of wetlands and towering reeds, we reach the water-woven coast. Here, the Merbos River and its siblings at last end their journey, pouring over 200 million liters of water into the sea every single second. The intersecting river mouths create a network of sandy, estuarine islands that constantly shift and change through cycles of sedimentation and erosion by brackish water. This transient archipelago is dominated by the silty expanse of Sundermere Island. The discharge of the rivers is so great that the water that flows to its north creates an entirely freshwater basin, enabling utterly unique habitats. As the river's flow finally meets the brine of the open ocean, it creates a stark, muddy wall that is visible from dozens of kilometers above the planet's surface. This region is a place of transitions, where animals must be adapted to both salt and freshwater to survive. Further out to sea, the biological and mineral runoff from the rivers feeds the largest and most diverse meadow reefs on Kappa. Shielded from scouring storms by the continent, they have had the chance to grow and spread undisturbed. Leaving the coast far behind, we head ever further north and east, until we reach the foothills of the Reagan Home Mountains. Created from the collision of two continental plates, they are formed as the crust buckles and crumples well above sea level. They are therefore taller than the Kalkani Mountains to the south. Their highest peak, Mount Selmar, is over 5,000 meters tall, comparable to the lower reaches of the Andes. They are almost totally unique on Kappa, as their mountain tops are often capped with ice and snow. Viewed from above, we can see the effects of the Reagan Home Mountains on the weather. As warm, wet air travels north, it rises up the mountainsides, cools, and condenses into clouds that empty rain down onto their southern sides. This fuels further rivers that run south to meet the mighty Merbos. The Vosum interior therefore traps warm, wet weather in a continent-sized bowl, fueling constant rain and keeping the river basin lush and evergreen. Heading to Vosum's far north, we witness the true effects of a rain shadow. After depositing their moisture in the south, cloud systems crest over the tops of the peaks before rolling down their northern slopes. As the air descends, it compresses, warming and drying out even further. Here is one of the few truly dry areas of Kappa. Evolving from wetland organisms, life in these red hills has had to adapt to a lack of moisture. Hardy reeds grow squat and tough, resembling pampas grass much more than their towering, water-saturated cousins. Finally reaching the northern Ferrumstrand coast, we are met with an enchanting and peaceful sight. The stifling humidity of the continental interior is gone, and it is much cooler. Dramatic sandstone cliffs conceal secluded, rose-gold beaches, whose soft red sands spill out into azure ocean waters. Nestled here in a quiet bay, a pleasant, cool sea breeze blows in from the northern oceans, stirring up fine sand grains and gently breaking waves. Looking out over the placid ocean, we see a rare sight indeed for this world. Consistently clear, blue skies. The perfect destination to end our journey. Thank you once again for joining me, everyone. This video was a bit different to my previous ones. I feel like I say that with every new video that comes out. But I felt it was really important to contextualize the place where Raphael lives, to flesh out this project a bit more. It also gives me some time to learn how to animate and rig creatures, so hopefully that will show in the next video, where we continue Raphael's saga as he explores hyacinth-choked anoxic death zones. If you like the project, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Patrons in the $20 alligator snapper tier will get a creature, plant, or something else named after them, as per the patron's discretion. Like patron Kaizak, who gave his name to the dark and stormy Kaizak Ocean and the Kaizak Oceanic Plate. Thank you, and see you again soon.